The soul does not completely forget its past lives. It merely loses conscious access to these memories. Like a translucent veil, the remembrance remains there, whispering through dreams and intuitions. Ancient Hermetic teaching. Imagine awakening in an unfamiliar room, with no memory of how you arrived or who you truly are. Your talents, knowledge, and abilities remain intact, but your entire personal history has been erased. This unsettling experience reflects what spiritual traditions call the veil of forgetfulness, a mystical phenomenon transcending cultures, epochs, and religions. The veil of forgetfulness represents a profound spiritual concept. When we are born into this physical world, our souls undergo a process of cosmic amnesia. We forget our divine origins, past lives, and all knowledge acquired before our current incarnation. This metaphorical veil does not exist by accident or divine oversight. It serves as an essential mechanism for our spiritual journey. In the waters of the river Lethe in Greek mythology, souls drank to forget their previous lives before being reborn. In Hindu tradition, Maya represents the illusion that obscures our true divine nature. Spiritist teachings speak of the necessity of forgetting for moral progress. Though names and details vary, the concept remains surprisingly consistent. We are eternal beings temporarily disconnected from our cosmic memory. Why must we forget? This fundamental question reveals the purpose of the veil. If we remembered everything, each past life, each mistake, each moment of glory or shame, how could we focus on the lessons of this incarnation? The veil protects our conscious mind from the overload of eternal information, allowing us to genuinely experience the lessons of this life. In the ancient Gnostic texts found at Nag Hammadi, this forgetting is described as part of the cosmic drama of the soul. The Corpus Hermeticum, a compilation of esoteric texts from the first centuries of the Common Era, teaches that overcoming this spiritual amnesia constitutes the true path to enlightenment. Know thyself, proclaimed the Oracle of Delphi, an invitation to remember our divine nature beyond the veil. The veil represents not just limitation, but opportunity. It allows us to make authentic choices without the weight of complete knowledge. It ensures that each life is a genuine journey of discovery, not merely the repetition of ancient patterns. It provides the necessary context for the exercise of free will. For how could we choose freely if we already knew all consequences and outcomes? For the contemporary spiritualist, understanding the veil of forgetfulness offers a transformative perspective on human existence. It explains why we feel that strange nostalgia for places never visited, the instant connection with certain strangers, and the inexplicable talents that seem to arise effortlessly. These are cracks in the veil, ancestral memories leaking into our consciousness. Ancient Hindu texts, particularly the Bhagavad Gita, describe how Maya, the cosmic illusion, veils our understanding of ultimate reality. Krishna teaches Arjuna that transcending this illusion constitutes the path to liberation. Similarly, Buddhist traditions speak of avidya, the fundamental ignorance that obscures our true nature. In all these traditions, forgetting represents not a failure, but an integral part of cosmic design. But if we forget everything at birth, how can we access this lost wisdom? How can we remember who we truly are beyond the veil? The oldest records of the veil of forgetfulness date back to civilizations that flourished millennia before our era. In ancient Egypt, the Book of the Dead describes the soul's journey through the Duat, the underworld, where certain aspects of memory are obscured to prepare the spirit for rebirth. Egyptian priests believed that knowledge of past lives remained accessible only to those who mastered the sacred mysteries. Plato, in the 4th century before the Common Era, offered one of the most influential descriptions of this concept in the 10th book of his work, The Republic. In the famous Myth of Air, he narrates how souls, before reincarnating, drink from the waters of the river Lethe, the river of forgetfulness. Those who drink too much completely lose their memories. Those who drink little retain fragments of previous knowledge. All souls drank a certain quantity, but those who did not preserve wisdom through philosophy drank more than necessary, wrote Plato, suggesting that philosophical study could mitigate the effects of the veil. This idea resonates deeply with his concept of anamnesis, the theory that all learning constitutes, in fact, a form of recollection of knowledge that the soul possessed before birth. The Gnostic texts discovered at Nag Hammadi, Egypt, in 1945, offer fascinating perspectives on the veil. The Gospel of Thomas and the Secret Book of John describe how the soul, upon entering the material world, undergoes a process of forgetting imposed by cosmic forces. For the Gnostics, this forgetting was not beneficial, but a trap created by the demiurge, an inferior being who created the material world to imprison divine sparks in physical bodies. Whoever discovers the interpretation of these teachings will not taste death, enigmatically declares the Gospel of Thomas, suggesting that transcending the veil of forgetfulness equals true spiritual immortality. In the East, the Hindu Upanishads speak extensively about the concept of Maya, the cosmic illusion that makes us forget our identity as Atman, the universal self. The Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, one of the oldest texts in this tradition, teaches that ignorance is not merely the absence of knowledge, but an active force that obscures truth. From the unreal lead me to the real. From darkness lead me to light. From death lead me to immortality. This prayer from the Upanishads can be interpreted as a request to transcend the veil of forgetfulness and remember our true divine nature. Buddhism addresses this theme through the concept of avidya, the primordial ignorance that keeps us trapped in the cycle of rebirths. In Buddha's teachings, this ignorance is not simply lack of information, but a state of consciousness that prevents us from perceiving the true nature of reality. Overcoming avidya means awakening from the dream of separation and remembering our interconnection with all existence. In Tibet, the Bardo Thodol, known in the West as the Tibetan Book of the Dead, offers detailed instructions for the soul during the intermediate state between death and rebirth. This text suggests that, at the moment of death, the veil is temporarily lifted, allowing the soul to recognize its true luminous nature. However, without adequate preparation, the spirit cannot maintain this expanded consciousness and eventually returns to the cycle of forgetting and rebirth. The Corpus Hermeticum, a compilation of Greco-Egyptian esoteric texts from the first centuries of the Common Era, directly addresses the theme of divine forgetting. In the treatise entitled The Cup or the Monad, Hermes Trismegistus teaches that the divine mind offers a cup of knowledge to souls, but not all can drink from it. Those who drink recognize their divine origin. Those who do not remain prisoners of ignorance. But why do so many ancient traditions converge on this concept? What did these diverse cultures perceive about our human condition? In the 19th century, the emergence of spiritualism in both Europe and America brought new light to the veil of forgetfulness. In The Spirit's Book, published in 1857, several questions were dedicated to this theme. When asked why we lose the memory of past lives, the response was illuminating. Man cannot and should not know everything. God so wills it in His wisdom. Without the veil that hides certain things from him, man would be dazzled, like one who passes suddenly from darkness to light. This explanation resonates with ancient traditions, but adds an important dimension: forgetting as an act of divine mercy. According to this view, remembering all our previous lives, with their traumas, guilt, and regrets, would create an unbearable psychological burden. The veil protects us from ourselves, allowing each life to be a genuine opportunity for a fresh start. It is further clarified that forgetting is not absolute. During sleep, especially, the soul can partially reconnect with its deeper memories. Significant dreams, inexplicable intuitions, and déjà vu represent moments when the veil becomes momentarily thinner, allowing glimpses of previous knowledge. The Theosophical Society, founded in 1875, brought to the West a synthesis of Eastern and Western wisdom. In the monumental work The Secret Doctrine, the veil is described as a necessary part of the soul's descent into matter. According to this view, forgetting occurs gradually as the spirit traverses different planes of existence before physically incarnating. The soul, in descending to incarnation, passes through various states of consciousness, each denser than the previous, until finally reaching the common waking state on the physical plane, wrote Helena Blavatsky, describing a complex cosmological process that explains why we are born without memories of our divine origin. The modern Hermetic tradition, revitalized in the early 20th century with works like the Kabbalion, attributed to the three initiates, addresses the veil through the principle of polarity. According to this view, forgetting and remembering represent opposite poles of the same reality. The initiate learns to balance these opposites, forgetting what must be forgotten and remembering what must be remembered. The mind, as well as metals and elements, may be transmuted from state to state, from degree to degree, from condition to condition, from pole to pole, from vibration to vibration, teaches the Kabbalion, suggesting that the veil can be manipulated through specific esoteric practices. Rudolf Steiner, founder of anthroposophy, offered a unique perspective on the veil of forgetfulness. In his lectures in the early 20th century, he described how, before birth, the soul undergoes a process called drinking the waters of forgetfulness, a direct reference to the Platonic myth. According to Steiner, this process is supervised by higher spiritual entities and specifically calibrated for each individual depending on their evolutionary needs. In Western esoteric traditions, the veil is often symbolized by the second card of the tarot, the High Priestess. Seated between two pillars, with a veil partially obscuring the sanctuary behind her, this figure represents the threshold between the conscious and unconscious, the known and unknown. She guards the mysteries, allowing access only to those who are truly prepared to remember. The concept of the veil also appears in the Kabbalah, particularly in the doctrine of the Sephiroth, the divine emanations that structure reality. The veil is associated with Dath, the hidden knowledge that separates the higher realms from the lower. Crossing this veil represents one of the greatest challenges in the Kabbalistic spiritual journey. But if the veil exists by divine design, should we really try to transcend it? Or would it be better to accept our condition of forgetting as a necessary part of the human experience? The exact mechanism by which the veil of forgetfulness operates remains one of the great spiritual mysteries. Different traditions offer complementary explanations that, together, form a fascinating mosaic of metaphysical possibilities. In the spiritualist view, the process occurs during incarnation, when the spirit connects to the forming physical body. The perispirit, a semi-material body that connects spirit and matter, acts as a filter, limiting access to previous memories. This filter does not eliminate memories, merely makes them inaccessible to waking consciousness, preserving them in the deep unconscious. Memories remain like a hidden treasure, explained one prominent spiritualist author, awaiting the moment when the soul, freed from material limitations, can again access them in their fullness. The Tibetan Buddhist tradition offers a more detailed explanation through the teachings of the Bardo Thodol. According to this text, during the intermediate state between lives, consciousness passes through three bardos or stages: the moment of death, the period of post-death experiences, and the process of rebirth. It is during this last stage that the veil forms when consciousness, attracted to future parents, compatible with its karma, gradually loses the expanded clarity it possessed in the intermediate state. The fundamental purpose of the veil transcends simple psychological protection. It serves as a catalyst for spiritual development through multiple mechanisms. First, forgetting ensures that each life is an authentic experience. If we remembered everything, we would constantly live in the past, unable to fully embrace the opportunities of the present. The veil forces us to be here and now, learning through direct experience rather than ancient memories. Second, it preserves free will. Knowing all the karmic consequences of our previous actions would create a psychological determinism that would limit our freedom of choice. Forgetting allows us to make genuinely new choices, not just react to established patterns. Third, the veil facilitates renewed relationships. Without it, how could we freely interact with someone who harmed us in a past life? Forgetting allows former enemies to become friends, karmic creditors and debtors to establish new dynamics without the weight of ancestral resentments. Fourth, it promotes the development of higher spiritual qualities. When we act ethically without remembering the karmic consequences, we develop genuine virtue, not just spiritual calculation. As the Bhagavad Gita teaches, disinterested action represents the highest form of spirituality. The spiritualist perspective adds another important dimension. The veil is not absolute, but gradual. More evolved spirits retain greater access to their previous memories, while less developed souls experience deeper forgetting. This gradation suggests that transcending the veil constitutes a natural part of spiritual evolution. As the spirit progresses, explained one spiritual teacher, it acquires greater consciousness of itself and its past, though still subject to the limitations necessary for its current incarnation. Interestingly, this view finds parallels in Jungian psychology. Carl Jung proposed the concept of the collective unconscious, a reservoir of memories and symbols shared by all humanity. Jungian archetypes can be interpreted as fragments of ancestral knowledge leaking through the veil, influencing our psyche even when we don't have conscious access to them. But if the veil exists in different degrees, does this mean we can learn to make it more transparent? Are there spiritual practices that allow us to remember more of our eternal nature without compromising the lessons of this life? The relationship between the veil of forgetfulness and reincarnation forms one of the central pillars of spiritual understanding in various traditions. Without the veil, the reincarnation process would lose much of its evolutionary purpose. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna explains to Arjuna the cyclical nature of existence. As a person puts on new garments, giving up old ones, the soul similarly accepts new material bodies, giving up the old and useless ones. This sacred Hindu text, composed approximately in the 2nd century before the Common Era, clearly establishes that the soul maintains its essence through multiple incarnations, although conscious memory is renewed with each life. Buddhist texts, particularly the Visuddhimagga, describe how rebirth occurs through the process of dependent origination, where the consciousness of one life establishes the conditions for the next, without transferring specific memories. Buddha frequently used the metaphor of one candle lighting another. The new flame is neither the same nor completely different from the original. In spiritualist traditions, the veil ensures that each incarnation is a genuine opportunity for growth. As the Spirit's book explains, if man preserved the clear remembrance of his previous existences, he he would confuse past and present existences and would lose the benefit of the current experience. This perspective suggests that forgetting is not a flaw in the cosmic system, but an intentional feature that maximizes the evolutionary potential of each life. Without the veil, we would carry the psychological weight of all our past mistakes, potentially paralyzing our ability to act freely in the present. However, the veil is not absolutely impenetrable. Evidence of past life memories appears in various forms. Déjà vu, that unsettling sensation of having experienced a moment before, may represent fragments of previous memories leaking through the veil. Researchers like Dr. Ian Stevenson have documented thousands of cases of children who spontaneously recall verifiable details of past lives, suggesting that the veil is thinner in early childhood, before socialization and cognitive development strengthen it. Inexplicable phobias, natural talents, and instant attractions or aversions to people or places can also be interpreted as echoes of previous experiences persisting beyond the veil. Psychiatrist Brian Weiss, in his book Many Lives, Many Masters, documents how past life traumas can manifest as psychological symptoms in the current life, even when specific memories remain inaccessible. In the Tibetan tradition, certain spiritual masters called tulkus supposedly maintain continuous consciousness through multiple incarnations. The Dalai Lama, for example, is considered the 14th incarnation of the same spiritual lineage, with the ability to recognize objects from his previous lives, a phenomenon suggesting that the veil can be partially transcended through advanced spiritual practices. The veil also operates differently during the between-lives state. According to the spiritualist view, after physical death, the spirit gradually regains access to its previous memories, being able to review its recently concluded life with expanded perspective. This period of review and planning allows the soul to consciously choose the conditions of its next incarnation, focusing on the lessons necessary for its development. In the spiritual state, wrote one spiritual teacher, the spirit recovers all its past existences. It sees and understands the trials it sought for its progress, and recognizes divine justice. It is then that it prepares its new existence, voluntarily choosing the trials that will contribute to its advancement. This view finds surprising parallels in the Tibetan Book of the Dead, which describes how, during the bardo, the soul has moments of expanded clarity before being drawn to a new rebirth compatible with its karma. Have you ever felt an inexplicable connection with someone you just met? Or experienced a natural talent for something you never formally studied? These common experiences may be cracks in the veil, allowing glimpses of connections and abilities developed in previous lives. Throughout millennia, spiritual traditions have developed specific practices to partially transcend the veil of forgetfulness, allowing access to knowledge and memories beyond the current experience. These techniques vary enormously in approach, but share the common goal of expanding consciousness beyond the limitations imposed by physical incarnation. In the Hindu yogic tradition, particularly in Raja Yoga, codified by Patanjali in the Yoga Sutras, deep meditation called samyama can lead to knowledge of past lives. The text states, "By applying samyama to the latent impressions comes the knowledge of previous births." This practice involves intense concentration, meditation, and contemplative absorption on a single object, eventually revealing the samskaras, karmic impressions from past lives imprinted on the subtle body. Tibetan Buddhism offers sophisticated Phowa meditation practices, which prepare the practitioner to maintain consciousness during the death and rebirth process. Through complex visualizations and subtle energy manipulations, the adept learns to deliberately transfer consciousness, potentially preserving memories through the veil. One who masters Phowa, teaches the Bardo Thodol, can choose his rebirth as one selects a new garment, maintaining full consciousness during the transition. In Hermetic and Gnostic traditions, initiation rituals aimed to induce anamnesis, the Platonic recollection of forgotten divine knowledge. These rituals often involved altered states of consciousness, archetypal symbolism, and cathartic experiences designed to temporarily tear the veil, allowing the initiate to glimpse higher realities. The Corpus Hermeticum describes this process. The knowledge of God has come to us, and when it came, ignorance was dispersed. The knowledge of joy has come to us, and when it came, sorrow fled to those who receive it. In modern spiritual contexts, past life regression therapy uses deep relaxation states similar to hypnosis to access memories apparently blocked by the veil. While controversial in scientific circles, thousands of documented cases suggest that under certain conditions, individuals can access detailed information about other times and places that they could not have known through normal means. Contemplative practices like mindfulness meditation, though not directly aimed at recalling past lives, can make the veil more transparent by developing expanded awareness. By carefully observing the contents of the mind without judgment, the practitioner may notice patterns, tendencies, and intuitive knowledge that transcend this life's experience. The Kabbalistic tradition offers an elaborate system for transcending the veil through meditation on Hebrew letters and the Sephiroth, the divine emanations that structure reality. Through practices such as Gematria, Notarikon, and Tamura, the Kabbalist seeks to decipher cosmic codes hidden in sacred scriptures, potentially accessing knowledge beyond the veil. Some contemporary practices combine ancient approaches with modern technologies. Cerebral hemispheric synchronization through binaural sounds, for example, aims to induce brain states associated with greater access to the deep unconscious. Holotropic breathwork techniques, developed by psychiatrist Stanislav Grof, can facilitate transpersonal experiences that seem to transcend the limitations of linear time and personal identity. It's important to note that all these practices carry both promises and warnings. The veil exists for specific reasons, and attempts to force it prematurely can result in psychological or spiritual imbalance. As the Tibetan Book of the Dead warns, even glimpses of the clear light of ultimate reality can be overwhelming for the unprepared mind. Perennial wisdom suggests a balanced approach. Instead of obsessively seeking specific memories of past lives, the spiritual aspirant should focus on developing qualities such as compassion, discernment, and detachment, virtues that naturally make the veil more transparent as the soul evolves. The veil becomes thinner not when we violently pull at it, but when we become more translucent ourselves, teaches a Hermetic maxim, suggesting that spiritual purification, not specific techniques, represents the safest path to transcend cosmic forgetting. Have you ever experienced moments of inexplicable clarity, where you felt you knew something you never studied in this life? What spiritual practices might help cultivate more of these moments of remembrance?